Hello, everybody, and welcome back here to East Texas Today on KTK Plus. We're going to go ahead and dive into our next topic this morning, which is DWIs. Now, Smith County has seen a 25% increase in DWI charges from 2023 to 2024, largely due to enhanced enforcement efforts. Now, that is according to a detective with the Sheriff's Office. Ryan Edmonds, a DWI expert currently assigned to the Crimes Against Children unit at the Smith County Sheriff's Office, explained to KTK that the rising DWI arrests is attributed to increased training and the deployment of task forces during peak times for intoxicated driving. Now, in 2023, we saw a total of 929 DWI charges, and in 2024, that was up 24.97% to 1,161 total charges, and that is across all of Smith County. Now, if you all are wanting to see a detailed breakdown of where those DWI charges came from, then you can visit us on our website, KTK.com. But as I said, this shows a 24.97% increase from 2023 to 2024. Now, these statistics were provided by the Texas Department of Public Safety. So if you all are wanting to gather more information on yourself, like I said, all of that is also available at KTK.com. But let's take a moment to listen to Ryan Edmonds. I had the pleasure of sitting down speaking with Detective Edmonds about this, and he really just broke down the basics of what a DWI is, the charges that go along with it, how you can avoid one, how people can help if you suspect somebody may be driving while intoxicated, as well as things that the Smith County Sheriff's Office is doing to crack down on them. As you all can see, the numbers reflect that. So you all take a listen to what he had to say. Let's go ahead and just start this off with a very, very simple question. Can you explain to me what a DWI is?
Sure. A DWI is short for driving while intoxicated. Texas Penal Code defines driving while intoxicated as operating a motor vehicle in a public place while intoxicated.
Okay, is there a difference between a DWI and a DUI?
Uh, a DUI is kind of a colloquial term that people, across different jurisdictions use. But the actual charge, criminal charge in the state of Texas, is DWI, or driving while intoxicated.
Okay, perfect. I had asked my mom that, and we were kind of debating on it, so I had to ask you. There are multiple different DWI charges that people can face. Can you explain to me how some of these may differ from one another?
Sure. So the base charge of driving while intoxicated, which means operating a motor vehicle in a public place while intoxicated, those are the base level elements that we have to meet. Depending on the circumstances, we could enhance that to a different level offense depending on your blood alcohol concentration, whether or not an accident was involved, if there was an accident, whether or not there were injuries. We also look at your prior convictions. If you have a prior conviction for DWI, we can enhance it that way. If there were children in the car, then that is also a way that we can enhance it.
Okay, is there a what would if it's the worst case scenario, what is that top, I guess, charge called?
Uh, there are several different, when we look at DWIs, there's different levels. The most serious would be, either a DWI third or more, or we could look at intoxication, intoxicated assault, or something like that. We did have a incident several years ago where one of our deputies was struck on a traffic accident, where while he was conducting a traffic stop, and the driver that hit and killed him was intoxicated. So I mean, as far as the most serious that we can get, probably intoxication manslaughter is the most serious that we can get.
Okay. And I'm so sorry. I hate that that happened to you all. But at what point does a DWI misdemeanor move to a felony?
It can move in several different ways. So um, the the main way that a DWI moves from a misdemeanor to a felony is based off your convictions. If you have two convictions prior to your, this new offense, this third offense, this would be a DWI third or more, and so that would make it a felony. Or if you have a child in the car at the time you're, driving while intoxicated, those are the two most common that we see as far as felony level.
Okay. And what tools or tactics do deputies use during a traffic stop to determine if someone is intoxicated?
The biggest tool that we have is our own observations. We receive extensive training in the academy, and even after the academy through the field training process and subsequent classes that we attend on how to recognize, how to articulate, how to test and recognize, symptoms and signs of intoxication. So our biggest tool is our own observations and our training. We also have PBTs or portable breath tests in the field that we utilize to try to confirm our observations.
Okay. So moving into more of a like, okay, I'm resisting. What happens if someone refuses a breathalyzer or field sobriety test, if that can happen?
It's uncommon, in my experience, but it just depends on the circumstance. If we have somebody who is obviously intoxicated, slurring speech, unable to stand, strong odor of alcohol, then we may not, you know, even if they refuse SFSTs or standardized field sobriety tests, they're probably still going to take a ride with us. But if it's, it is also one of those things where, I have to have probable cause to arrest you. And if it's one of those things where I'm on the fence about whether or not, I feel like I have probable cause or not,
Hmm.
then it could be a situation where we decide not to arrest that person.
Okay. Now, moving to our next question, what does jail time and fines look like for a DWI arrest? Like, example, first time offenders versus repeat offenders.
Sure. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know, like the signs say on the side of I-20, DWI, you can't afford it. Um, that's the biggest thing that people face. Even if it's just a misdemeanor, a Class B misdemeanor in DWI, you're still going to pay several $1,000s in fines, in addition to all the license suspensions and everything else that you have to do because of that.
Y- Absolutely. It's so worth getting that rod share or getting somebody to pick you up. It'll save you money. So,
Absolutely.
how often do you see repeat offenders? I mean, what additional consequences do they face after that?
So, excuse me.
You're fine.
So, as far as repeat offenders, I don't have a number of, I can't say, 30, 40, 50%, but it's very common, after I, one of our deputies, place somebody under arrest for driving while intoxicated, we run their criminal history and we see that, they've had a prior conviction. And usually it's, within the past couple of years.
Hmm.
So, you know, I don't have a number in front of me, but it is a very common thing that we see.
Yeah, absolutely. Sadly, that's the sad thing that we have to say that it is common. But so if we're talking beyond jail time fines, of course, those are things that people know that come along with DWIs. What long-term effects can a DWI conviction have on someone's life? So, for example, can they lose their driver's license or driver's license suspension for this?
A driver's license is a huge thing. When you get arrested or convicted for driving while intoxicated, that's an automatic suspension on your driver's license. And in addition to driver's license suspension, a lot of people lose their job because of that. Because you know whether or not they're drive for a living, if somebody works in the medical field, I know we've had issues in the past where we've had somebody that worked in the medical field and they get a driving while intoxicated charge. Well, they don't drive for a living, but if their decision making can be called into question about their actions, then people losing their job, their livelihood is also another huge impact that we see.
Wow, the things that are attached to doing this, I mean, that should be enough for people not to want to. But
I
um,
agree.
are there certain holidays or times during the year that you all see a spike in DWI arrest?
Uh, Definitely around the holidays, Thanksgiving, New Year, Christmas, July 4th, Memorial Day, Labor Day, even Super Bowl Sunday, things like that. To counteract that, we have enhanced enforcement or increased enforcement. We have people that come in on their off days to to get overtime,
Mhm.
and are specifically assigned to a task force that all they're doing all night is looking for drivers who are intoxicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Are checkpoints a part of this?
We don't do checkpoints here in Smith County. I know that across the country there are different opinions on whether checkpoints are illegal or not. In Smith County, I know for sure we do not do checkpoints.
Well, I just gave it away. I'm not from Texas. I'm from Arkansas, but that that is so I did not know that. That's so different. Okay. Well, Smith County saw around a 25% increase in DWI charges from 2023 to 2024. What do you think is behind that increase?
I think the biggest, you know, factor behind that increase is probably the enhanced enforcement that we've put into place. The calling people in to do the specific task force on their days off or during peak DWI season, as well as the enhanced training that we receive throughout my career. I've been doing this since 2015, and I've been amazed to see how far we've come and how quickly um, our training and our education progresses to the extent that we can train officers better on how to recognize symptoms and signs of impairment, and so that they can utilize those things in the streets.
Absolutely. Okay, and this is my last question that I have down. I want to ask you, what advice would you give to drivers to avoid becoming a part of these rising statistics?
Sure. Rideshare, Uber, Lyft, taxi, designated driver is always a really good option. But if you don't want to have to rely on somebody else, then take an Uber to the party, take an Uber home. Um, don't get behind the wheel of somebody, or don't get in the car with somebody who's also been drinking. That's another thing that we see, especially with crashes. It's not always the driver that gets killed, and most tragically, it's a lot of times not the driver; it's the passengers in the vehicle. So plan ahead. If you know you're going to be drinking, even if you don't plan on getting drunk, or just having a couple, plan ahead, plan to call for a ride. Um, just plan those things ahead of time.
Absolutely. This wasn't a question that was on your sheet here, but it just came to my head. We may or may not use it. But if they have alcoholic beverages in the vehicle, is there any charge that comes along with that or any consequence along with that?
Absolutely. In the state of Texas, it's unlawful to have an open container of alcohol in the vehicle, even if it's in the back seat, even if you're not the one drinking it. If there's an open container in the vehicle, that in and of itself is a criminal offense.
Wow. Okay. Well, is there anything else regarding DWIs that you want to get into, maybe that we didn't have written down or something that maybe I missed?
Sure. Just another topic that we discuss. I'm also a drug recognition expert with the IACP, and it's another thing that we've seen a very a big increase in is drug impairment. It's not just alcohol that we're seeing anymore,
Mhm.
and it's very common now for us to get the blood results back from a DWI, and we're showing an alcohol concentration of below zero point zero 0.08, but we're also seeing THC, we're seeing fentanyl, we're seeing methamphetamine, we're seeing heroin, we're seeing all kinds of things in addition to alcohol that are also impairing the effects of people. Um, and so, that's one of the things that I talked about earlier, the increase in training that we've had. The in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there wasn't even a statute on the books that allowed us to arrest somebody if they were high on barbiturates, or something like that, unless they had a blood alcohol concentration of at the time zero point 0.1. Then we had to send them on their way, no matter how impaired they were. And now, because of the funding that we've gotten, and because of the training that we received and the research that's been done, we now have the training to be able to determine what category of drug that they're under the influence of, and also be able to prosecute them for that.
Absolutely. Is there a certain age range that you all see this or this happening in? So is it younger, like college age, or are we talking older people or just anybody?
Uh, you know, Anecdotally, I think that there's probably a gap. We have our 18 to 24-year olds, and then honestly, I kind of see like a gap where there's an age gap that I don't see a lot, and then there's our 50, 16, 7-year olds that they're usually the ones with two or more prior convictions that we see.
Yeah.
But that's
Ha-
anecdotally.
Having too much fun at 50 years old. That's crazy. But yeah, is there anything that I missed maybe? Because we're basically just doing a deep dive into DWIs and things like that. So I want to make sure that we cover everything to do with the topic.
Sure. One of the other questions that I saw in here was, things that we look for, tactics that we do.
Hmm.
In addition to working, extra, we also look at our high crime areas, right? We look at the places that are serving alcohol. We look at restaurants, bars, other establishments that serve alcohol, as well as, pasture parties. I was also a field training officer when I was on patrol, and one of the things that I taught my trainees, if they get called to a noise complaint at a pasture party, then we're going to go back by there later, because they're going to start leaving at some point. And so we, throughout the night, when we're on those targeted enforcement task forces, we look at our areas and decide, which areas are going to be the most impacted by this crime, and we step up enforcement in those areas.
Okay.
One of the biggest tools that we use to initiate our investigation is the public, right? So in addition to us watching high crime areas, people leaving bars, people leaving clubs, stuff like that, a huge number of our DWI arrests come from citizens who call in. I know that even now When I'm off duty, I'll be driving behind somebody at night. I'll be like, golly, this guy must be drunk. And, and as a law enforcement officer, I can actually step in and do something. But I know that, from talking to people that, that's a very common thing that happens. You're driving behind somebody, you think, man, this guy's got to be drunk. And so, the public calling in and, to the sheriff's office, police department, or whatever jurisdiction they're in, and letting us know, hey, there's this guy on the road and he's driving, his driving behaviors are, not normal, right? It doesn't have to be somebody that's all over the road. They're just driving into oncoming traffic, but something, things that are, not normal for a normal driver to be doing, right? Straddling lane dividing lines, driving in improved shoulders, driving 15 miles an hour below the posted speed limit, you know. So the public's, the public calling in and reporting those things is a, you know, is accounts for probably a vast majority of our DWI arrests.
Okay, and if somebody, let's just say I was driving and I saw this, what information do I need to give to you all for you all to locate it and be able to, find this individual?
Sure. Location, direction of travel, and description of vehicle that
Okay.
are the most important things, right? Location, because we're going to dispatch the closest deputy that we have to their direction of travel, so that if I have somebody, if they're heading south on Highway 271, and I have somebody at 271 the loop, that I can station them in those areas so they can intercept them. Then of course the description of the vehicle, if it's a red SUV, a white passenger car, so that I can, even if I don't see the driving behaviors that you're seeing while I'm parked, I can look at the traffic and say, hey, there's a red SUV. That was that description is consistent with the one that was given by our caller.
Absolutely. I feel like we probably also get wrapped up in trying to get that license plate number to let you all know. I'm sure that helps a lot too, but it
Absolutely. But at the same time, that you have to be pretty close to the license plate number, and if they're intoxicated, or we also don't want the public to get involved. Maybe this person realize that they're being tailed, and they might get mad at that person. If you get a license plate number, great, but don't it's not the end of the world if you don't.
Absolutely. Well, that's good to know that we can do our due diligence in reporting it as well and helping you all out. But you all are doing a great job, as we can see that, hey, y'all gotten more people for this crime, which is great. Because let's go ahead and just
All right, you
start.
all. Well, that wraps up that interview. As you could see, he gave us a lot of great information and even a way that you all can help, just as the general public. If you see something, say something, make that call. You could be saving a life and getting a person that is dangerous off of the road. So that is just some information for you all. There is also going to be an article available online at KETK.com if you all would like to view more information about this topic.